Good morning, everyone. I am Pranali, your host for today. I welcome each and everyone for today's Sadgun Sang Meet. This is our 271st virtual webinar. Topic for today is inspection and testing of electrical rotary equipment motors, which shall be taken by Mr. Sunil Khanna. Agenda for the Sadgun Sang Meet. Virtual inauguration by Dr. Sundar Kataria, invoking the blessing of Deity, chanting of Gayatri Mantra, introduction of speaker, presentation by Mr. Sunil Khanna, question and answer sessions, closing session. Dr. Sundar Kataria, Chairman and Managing Director, ICS Group Companies. Sadgun Sang conceived and led by Dr. Sundar Kataria, driven with the mission to elevate the quality, safety, and environmental awareness levels of industry. Sadgun Sang is a series of educative, informative events aiming to illuminate professionals on possible solutions to current issues of industry and economy. Designation and Organization, Chairman and Managing Director, International Certification Services Private Limited, Academic Qualification, Mechanical Engineering, Honorary Doctorate, Business Management, Experience, Nuclear Lab. He started his career in building India's first nuclear power plant at Rawalpindi, Kota, Rajasthan. Oil and Gas EIL. He contributed in developing India's first oil and gas field at Bombay High since its inception. DNV. He was head of industry and offshore development with DNV for 2 decades. ICS. He is a founder of a first Indian conformity assessment and inspection body known as International Certification Services Private Limited, which is a provider of total quality solution under single umbrella with a wide spectrum of services. Achievements and awards. Lifetime Achievement Award of NACE Kokon received several national and international awards. Now I request Dr. Sundar sir to virtually inaugurate today's session.
शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Please join us for the recitation of the Gayatri Mantra. Introduction of the keynote speaker. Mr. Sunil Khanna, Designation and Organization, Vice President, Inspection Onshore, ICS Private Limited, General Manager ONGC, Academic Qualification, BSc in Pure Science, BTech in Electrical Engineering. Area of Specialization, 37 years of experience in the oil and gas sector, specializing in operations, maintenance, procurement and inspection of drilling and operational equipment. Welcome, sir. Over to you, sir.
Morning, everybody. मेरा presentation यहाँ से चालू करूँ? ये कहाँ आ रहा है इसका? ये ऊपर का जो आ रहा है। Good morning, everybody. Sorry to be late. Now, today's presentation is being presented by me for the Sadguru SJKK SJK Foundation. Now, our presentation is for the testing of rotary electrical equipment, motors. We are covering only motors at this presentation. Now, when we go for the inspection and testing of any equipment, बहुत तेज आवाज आ रही है, बहुत तेज आवाज आ रही है, आवाज कम हो सकती है इसकी।
आप बोलो।
आपसे बहुत आवाज आ रहा है इसको मतलब आपकी आवाज आ रही है
इसकी जरूरत नहीं है ना, डबलिंग नहीं चाहिए।
बस यहाँ पे वो स्लाइड आगे बढ़ा देंगे।
ठीक है।
Now, when we go for the inspection or testing of any equipment, what we require, what the preparations are required before going to that preparation. What we have to study is what the item which we have to inspect. In our case, this is a motor, electrical motor, and particularly a squirrel cage motor. So what we need is the first the specifications of the item on the motor and what is the purchase order is stating over there. So that is what is the requirement first. Then second is this, what is the QAP? What are the quality assurance procedure or inspection testing procedures has been defined for such inspection? Because you cannot inspect all the things, you cannot go beyond the limitations of this QAP and ITPs. Once you are familiar with these two, then you will go for the testing. And in the testing, what we is most important is the witness and simultaneously the review of other documents, visual inspections and other things. And then what more is required is the documentation. What are the documents that required? These all details will be available in QAP and ITP. Next, please. Now, when we are talking about the specifications, what we as requirement is the specifications, we will go line by that. The specifications of an motor. The first thing is that what is the type of the motor you need. So there are the different types of the motor which you will get: AC motors, DC motors, and another classification of the motors is LT motors, medium voltage motors, and HT motors. LT means low voltage motors. AC motor means alternating current motor, DC motor means direct current motors. Next, please. Now we go for the again another type of the motors. In the case of the AC motors, further can be classified the single phase motors, polyphase or multi-phase motor, and synchronous motor. Now further classification of the AC motors. Yes. Are induction motors, squirrel cage motors, wound motors, and split phase, as we have already given you, shaded phase motors are also there. Now our focus today is on the squirrel cage motors only. This specification, what are the specifications requirement? The specifications of an electrical motor, type of the motor has been defined. Now we are going for the specifications of the electrical motor required for a comprehensive set of the electrical, mechanical, and environmental parameters to ensure the proper performance, efficiency, and longevity. It means life of the motor. Now we will go one by one over all the types of the specifications. What are the electrical specifications, mechanical specifications, environmental specifications, and if any other specifications. These fields, the mechanical, electrical, etc., has been defined in NEMA, that is the North America Standard Organization, and IEC International Standard. Next slide, please. Electrical characteristics, that is the electrical specifications. What is required is the voltage of a motor. The motor depends upon the voltage, as I earlier also said during the classifications, low tension motors, medium voltage motors, and high tension motors. Now, normally we are going today is for the 460 volt motor. That's why I've written is the 430 volt and 460 volts. Now the current. What are the other requirement is that current. Current is always provided in amperes. Full load current amperes of the motor and block rotor amperes starting, etc. These are to be defined. Then the frequency, at what frequency, because AC motors are alternating current motors and they have always having a frequency that is 50 hertz in India and 60 hertz in Europe. Number of the phases of the motor, now we are talking about the three-phase spiral cage motor, so we are going for the three-phase, not any other phases we are discussing. Next. Speed, then the other parameters of the electrical electrics are the speed, that is the RPM. Now, in case of the spiral cage motor, it also depends upon the frequency. So, speed and frequency. Now, speed is normally defined for the two-pole motors is up to 3000 RPM, 1500 RPM. But if we take the 60 hertz frequency, then this RPM goes to 36,000 and 1800 RPM for the two-pole and single-pole motors. Now the efficiency, motors efficiency is most important part, because whenever you are transferring the energy from one part to the other part, mechanical to electrical, electrical to mechanical, or heat to the electrical or mechanical, now the efficiency is most important because it will guide you that what is the input and what is the output you are getting it. Now next one, how to the power factor. Power factor is the is in case of the AC motors, it comes. In DC motor, it is always unity. But in AC motors, the power factor is a relationship between the directions of the current and the directions of the voltage. How far, whence the voltage is applied and how much time it is taking the current to flow. Now, insulation class. What is the next is the insulation class. Insulation class indicates the insulation availability, resistance, heat. There are different types of the insulation class, B, C, F, H. These are the insulation class, and it depends to what temperature the motor can be run on. Next is that mechanical and performance characteristics. Now the electrical characteristics we have defined very well. Now we are going for the mechanical characteristics. That is mechanical, what is the most requirement is that torque. Now the torque can be different type. Torque can be of the starting torque. Torque can be the rated torque, that is at the full speed torque. And breakdown. When you are breaking down also, then there is a torque you have to apply to break down, and that is also important. So that is to be defined. Then the duty cycle. Duty cycle is another important, very important terms in rotating machines. That how much time you have to rotate. Is it continuous? Continuous means 24 hours, 7 days, 65 days a year, and 7 days a week. So if it is like that, then the motor can be continuous, is at continuous run, or intermittent. Intermittent means you can run the motor with the same rated capacity for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour, but that will be defined in the specifications that how much is there. Then there is another features of this, that when you run the motor for 1 hour, can you run it after 5 minutes, or can you run it after again 1 hour or someone? So what is the rest time before restarting the motors is also important. And accordingly, the rating of the motors changes. Now the frame size. Frame size is another important aspect of the electrical motors. It's available for all types of electrical motors. It decides what are the protections have been given to the motors from the environment, such as water. We have written ODP, open drip proof, means drop by drop if the water is falling, it will not affect my motor. Totally enclosed, fully enclosed motor है, fully open motor है, partially open motor है, partially enclosed motor है, all these things are there, and whether the motor is being used in a hazardous location. Hazardous location is especially for the oil and gas sectors, and of course earthquake sectors also this is the case. Mounting configuration of the motor, whether it is foot mounted, flange mounted, हवा में लटक रही है, or face mounted. Shaft diameter. Motors are having different parts and the shaft is the central part. On this the rotor comes, and above the rotor stator comes. Then they are the end covers. So shaft diameter is also important, and its length is also important. Sometimes you may have the extended shaft motors where you need more dimension because it depends on the space. कितनी space है हमारे पास, उतनी जगह में कैसे मोटर लगनी है. Then dimensions for coupling of the load bearing type. Bearing type is also important because motor rotates on shaft के ऊपर bearing है, bearing के ऊपर rotor है. तो bearing is also important because bearing gives कि कितना load bearing ले सकती है और कितनी fast they can move, and what are the vibrations will be generated during the move. Then the direction of rotation is also important. In which direction the motor will rotate, whether it's clockwise, counterclockwise, or it can rotate in both the directions, depending upon the connections. Next place. Environmental and safety constraints. As we were discussing that, now there are certain constraints of the environment because the protection we were discussing. Then the ambient temperature, the maximum operating temperature of the surroundings. Often it is defined as 40 degrees centigrade, and similarly there is a minimum operating temperature also there at which the motor is to be run in the environments. Apart from this, the insulation class gives another level of increase in the temperatures. Now, at what altitude the motor is operating? मोटर ऑपरेट कहाँ पर हो रही है, कितनी हाइट पर है, कितनी ऊंचाई पर है, कहाँ पर है, समुद्र के अंदर भी है या पानी चारों तरफ है उसके, या एयर चारों तरफ है. और इन सब चीजों को जो हम लोग पहले फ्रेम डिस्कस कर रहे थे, फ्रेम के साथ साथ एक अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट चीज आती है, दैट इज ingress protection. Ingress protection is very important, and then it decides whether पानी का फ्लो हम कितना रोक सकते हैं, कितनी है, कितनी लहरों के वेग के अंदर हम लोग कितना कर सकते हैं, या कितनी आग से दूरी के अंदर है, कितना सब है. All these water, this depends on this IP impression. It decides which particle of which size, whether liquid or solid, can go, and even in the nowadays, even the gas particles are also being considered for this. This is decided by this index protection IP66, and 55 are the used for the hazardous areas. Now we are talking about the hazardous area. So hazardous duties, there are the mandatory authorities which decides whether the motor can be used in hazardous area or not. So accordingly, the hazardous duties are there for class 1, division 1, class 2, etc. Additional specifications. Now service factor, that's what I defined as the कि मोटर कितने टाइम चलेगी, कितने टाइम नहीं चलेगी. ऐसे ही एक सर्विस फैक्टर है which defines the overload capacity. Because we have talked about the rating of the motor can be run for a short period at overload also. So that is what is the service factor. Thermal protection. Sensors such as PTC, thyristor, thermostats. Now the thermal protection, if the motor temperature is increasing, I don't want that my motor should get burned, so I have to use these sensors to stop the motor immediately, and it is an emergency breakdown. Now the noise level, when the motor or anything which runs, which goes, even the human being, when he takes a breath, they create a sound. And that sound causes a noise, and this noise level kitna hona chahiye, it is also defined in the specifications and is very important. Now, next part is that weight. Of course, weight everybody knows. Weight is important. कि मोटर को कहाँ कैसे लगा के उसको ऊपर कितना होना है and driving etc. And sorry. Now, what the nameplate of a motor should indicate? Number one, rating. हॉर्स पावर कितने हॉर्स पावर की है, उसकी क्या कैपेसिटी है, कितनी कैपेसिटी पे इसको रन करना है, उसके ऊपर अगर हम जाएंगे तो क्या इफेक्ट्स होंगे. ऑफ कोर्स व्हेन द ओवरलोड कैपेसिटी surface factor is available, depends upon that we can overload. Then the number of the phases which we have defined earlier also. Then what is the rated voltage, it is also has been defined earlier also. So all these things should be on there. And then what is the full load current, at what frequency it is being operated, मोटर की एफिशिएंसी क्या है, मोटर का फ्रेम साइज क्या है, दैट इज आल्सो रिलेटेड. एंड देन द व्हाट इज द फुल लोड स्पीड. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. Manufacturer's name should be there. NEMA design codes should also be there, but not available in all plates. Temperature rise, कितने temperature तक वो काम कर सकती है वो है. Log rotor indicates the code letter. IP is required to be on the frame size. And the frame, what type of the frame it is there, it is also there. Direction of rotation. Now I will give you a little idea about the IPs. Next slide. This is the nameplate. A nameplate I have particularly given it there that you can go through the nameplate, what all are the specifications have been given. Now if you see, there is a order number or they can have a serial number. Then डाटा कोड दिया है, टाइप दिया है, कौन सा टाइप की मोटर है, कितनी हॉर्स पावर है, दैट इज द रेटिंग, एम्पियर रेस कितनी है, आरपीएम कितनी है, कौन सी ड्यूटी की है, दैट इज अ कंटिन्यूअस ड्यूटी. Temperature, ambient temperature they have given is a 40 degrees centigrade in this. And then if you will see to the right side, frame is also given, this is 449 AS. And then service factor which we were talking is 1.15, and up to 15% overload can be there for a short movement. Then the voltage is given 460, and here is the hertz, it's given 60. That means it is a European motor. It's not made for the Indian environment. Now, if you will see on the right side, you will find that there are the terminals which has been given. What are the connections? Star connections and delta connection, run connection. Now, if you can see there are numbers are given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And especially these numbers are given. And then we were talking about the manufacturer's name should be on this. See the Siemens written up also, and the Siemens Energy and Automation, that is the name of the company, has been given, and where it has been made, it's also written made in USA. So this is the kind of the nameplate details. Next, please. Now, which I was giving to you the IP, regarding the IP, I'm giving you a very small idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4. They are the two, because IP is always given as the 55 and 66 as I have shown you there. So now IP, then I take only the first row, then IP will be 1, 1. Second row, IP will be 2, 2. Third row, IT will be 3, 3. Fourth row, IT will be 4, 4, 5, 5 and 6, 6. I have not shown here. You can read it yourself. Now, one is the protected against the solid objects of 50 millimeter. Means 5 सेंटीमीटर से कोई भी छोटा सॉलिड टुकड़ा होगा तो वो मोटर के अंदर जाकर के मोटर को खराब करेगा और यह कर सकता है. Then accordingly another one is this, protected against vertically falling drops. That's what I mean is a few drops, if the water drops are falling, then it can be protected. But if we go for the 2, 2, then the first is the solid one, that is the protected against the solid object of 12 mm. But means 1.2 सेंटीमीटर का ऑब्जेक्ट रुक जाएगा, बट उससे छोटा ऑब्जेक्ट मोटर के अंदर चला जाए. Protected against the direct now spray of water with the 15 degrees. Now, here is if a continuous spray of the water is being done with the angle of the 15 degrees, then it can be protected. It will not go inside the motor. And if it is more than this, then it will go to the motor and can burn the motor. Then like number third, protected against the solid objectives of 2.5 mm. It has been again reduced. One is a 50 mm, two is a 12 mm, three is a 2 mm, and fourth is a 1 mm. And fifth will be much lesser than this. Sixth will be almost a single triangle particle. Like this, for the liquid also, that is the water we are considering here. The number 1, 2, 3, 4 has been given. Nowadays, for the gases also, the people have worked out, and then the IP will be given into the 3 digits instead of 2 digits. But we are restricting to the specifications and testings. So we are going there. Next. Now with this we have almost completed the specifications of the motors. Now we are going for the testing of motors, QAP and the ITP we will discuss little later, which was the second one. Now for next slide, please. Now testing of the motors. Now we are saying that the type testing of the motor can be of the 3 different types: type test, routine test, acceptable test, or the other specific test required by the client. Then the visual inspections, you all are very familiar. Now the type tests are having a typical thing that type test may be destructive. Hence, normally we don't go for the type tests or type test witnesses during this, but the type test certificates and other things which has been done done earlier on the motor has been to be taken care. Now, routine tests we always do. We always go and witness the routine test. These tests are non-destructive. Next one, please. What are the routine tests? Routine tests are for an electrical machine. They are defined in 60034 IS. I have given the IS capital broad because so that it can be different from the IS, that is the international standard, which is having a of its parts and approvals. As for the said routine procedure, motor tests are shown in clause 16.1 of 125126. Routine test, class 1 routine test. Now, first routine test we are doing is a insulation resistance test. That is the IR test, also known as the IR test. This test is to be measured. This is very important test. If the motor is running and I am putting a hand on the motor frame, I should not get a shock. I should not get a shock. So for this we test it. And to measure this, a motor insulation resistance test, you can have a high resistance mega ohm meter. What is the instrument required for this is a mega ohm meter. And sometimes it is also known as the insulation tester. The test is called a mega test. In general, minimum value of this should be 30 mega ohms for the HT motors. Now, this is the diagram we have given for the testing of the insulation of a motor. Now, these are the 3 windings you will see. Then this is a motor, and motor के किसी भी एक तीनों आपस में connected है. Terminals we have been connected, one of the motor and other is to the motor body. And we will see कि भाई कितना डिस्टेंस आ रहा है, या तो हम motor body को देंगे, and motor body should be earth, so that no current can flow through the motor body, and it gives a direct reading. Next one, please. Now, what are the voltage at which the mega is to be used is defined in this topic. If there is a 24 to 50 volts, then the DG set test value के DG के अंदर 52 है, केबल 100 वोल्ट, 24 वोल्ट, 440 वोल्ट, 240 वोल्ट, 410 वोल्ट्स के लिए No, I'm getting little confused. Just a minute. Now, for the 50-volt motor, we should have the testing value 100 volt for DC. For 24-volt AC, we will have the 50-volt AC, and then this 440 volts to 50 volt, we have 1000 volt to DC volt, and 2000 volt, 5000 volt. Now, the DC tensor voltage minimum is 100 volt, and maximum, which we are having the 5000 volt. We are using the 5 kV mega. There are 2.5 kV mega, and normally we use 1000 kV or 500 volt mega. Protein test winding resistance. Measurement of the resistance of the winding stators, it is given in 16.1.2. Stator resistance is measured using a DC resistance meter test. Now, this can also be measured with the multimeter, avometer, which involves passing a direct DC current through the stator windings and measuring the voltage drop between the terminals. The test is performed on a cold motor. Means the motor should not be running in these times while we are taking any resistance test, चाहे वो मेगर हो चाहे वो internal resistance. So motor should be standby, and it should be in the cool condition. It should not be like that the motor has been run for 1 hour and then stopped and then immediately you are taking. We have to give the rest so that motor temperature should come to the environmental temperature, and at that environmental temperature we are taking resistances मेगर हो या internal resistance हो, हम उसी पर लेते हैं. The stator resistance can be calculated directly as V by R, because we are using is a DC voltage and not an AC voltage. And if we will use AC voltage, we will not get the resistance, we will get the impedance. So now let's go to the next. Now this is the diagram for measuring. You see the motor. It has been shown as a 3 windings. It is a star connected motor, and then the voltage is being applied, that is by the multimeter or by any other voltage source. You can multiply and then give a current. You can measure a current and this, and then the difference will give me the V by A, will give me the resistance. Now this is to be done on all the 3 terminals combinations. Routine test are being continued. Generally, an inspector use a multimeter. That's what I told you. While checking the resistance value, it is required to set multimeter, ohm meter to be corrected scale. Means they should be calibrated. The same way has been done to be the measure also, that they should be calibrated, and this. And another thing, when we are measuring these things, we should be able to understand what is the scale. The resistance should be within the scale, and it should not be so that if the resistance is being measured 5 ohm and I am using 100 ohm resistance or a kilo ohm meter we are using, because of our eyes and other things, so that we can know the exact and accurate resistance to the extent possible. Next slide, please. Now, we have taken the resistance values, that is the mega testing, insulation resistance, and then the internal resistances. Now we are going for the no load test. Till this time, the motor was stationary. Now we will rotate the motor. And no load test is very simple, that there should be no load. Arthat, the shaft should be free. A motor shaft should be free from any load, and then we should run the motor. And again, while we are running the motor, this no load test, what it gives, because there is no load, so we will be knowing what is the power being used just to give a rotation to the motor, so that motor can be rotated. Now, it is often used to evaluate the motor's efficiency, especially during the design and after repairs. And it also gives Now this is a diagram for the no load. This is a three-phase motor, and no load we are taking, we are calculating the power. Now there are 2 kilowatt meters connected. Here is no voltage meter I have connected, but 2 watt meters are connected, and at the same time we are measuring the voltage between the 2 phases and a current. And then there are the calculations which gives the what is the drop, voltage drop and other things they give. Next, please. No load current and no load power input values when motor is at a temperature stabilized conditions. It is an important aspect when this motor is running at no load. You should also note that the RPM of this time, the motor RPM should be approximately the same as the its rated RPM, or it will be all same as per the rated item. And when motor is at the ambient temperature, running at that temperature. Next. Next. This we also. Now locked rotor test. No, you routine test is over. Locked rotor test. 16.4 locked rotor test is a test which defines different types of the losses in the rotor. This is the rotor of the motor is blocked and not allowed to move, and a voltage motor terminal is increased gradually till the stator current reach to the value as indicated in the nameplate. Means we are running the motor with the rated current, but the not and at the reduced voltage. Now this test also gives me indications about efficiency, motor resistance and other things. Please go to the next. To perform this test, what diagram I will give you later, the current with the stator winding is adjusted and the rated value. The voltage between the terminals is measured. The current in the stator winding is adjusted to the rated value. That's what we were telling earlier also, an attempt to heat the winding to the same temperature they would have during the normal operation. The current flows through 2 of the windings so that the total resistance current is the path 2 or 1 therefore. Next slide please. What is what? Now this is the process for the locked rotor test. Locked rotor test can be a destructive test if it has not been performed properly and very carefully. Hence, it is required, what is required and how it is performed is being written there. Ensure that the motor is unloaded and the variac is set to 0, means the voltage is at 0. Connect to the voltage supply, turn the sequence motor AC supply on, and motor is blocked at this time. You are not allowing motor to rotate. And so gradually increase the voltage till we reach to the current, because at this time the winding is being heated maximum. Next slide. Now this is the diagram for this locked rotor test. This is the instrument being used for the block rotor test. If you see, with the help of the springs, loads and other things, the shaft has been locked. And then the motor will be supplied with this. Slowly we will increase the voltage and will reach to the maximum current level. Next slide. This is the same thing which we have told earlier. This is rated out of the 12 gauge motor. The test is conducted to check the ability of the motor to run up to its rated speed at no load. The motor shall be supplied with the reduced voltage 1 by V3 to operate at the value. Normally, this is the value which comes when we apply the voltage 1 by √3 voltage. It's for a standards. Yes, next slide, please. Now there is another test which is high voltage test. This test is also to be carried out when the motor is stationary. This is the high voltage test. This is being taken care that how much is the resistance it can voltage it can protect. 80% of the voltage to be conducted that will of the previous test. Means this test should not be repeated because it damaged the winding, slightly damaged the winding. Next one. The voltage for a high voltage test depends upon the device being tested. The type of the test being performed, high voltage test can be performed using a DC voltage. Yes, it is being performed with the help of the DC voltages only and not normally with the DC. Next slide, please. High voltage tests at 50 hertz are carried out because there is a frequency test on low voltage. The equipment, each one of these devices are subjected to a high voltage. High voltage, what is a high voltage? 1 kV plus 2 times of the working voltage. That is a high voltage we should use. And then the 60 seconds is the time, maximum time, 60 seconds, which we use for the high voltage test, which gives about the dielectric test and other things for the motor. Next one, please. Now the type test के अंदर dimension, that is the frame size आ गया, block rotor test आ गया, full load test आ गया, determine PF and efficiency, etc. We can always test motor at full load, 75% load, 50% load and 25% load. This is required for calculating the making the graph for the efficiencies of the motor. Now temperature rise test is a very typical test. And it takes a lot of time how the temperature is being raised in the motor when it is running. And then monetary overload test, that is a service factor test. These are the things. Next. That is a monetary overload, that is a service factor test, which is 1.6 times of the rotor torque के हिसाब से हम लोग करते हैं. Next one, next one. It is for a very small period, 15 seconds. When now we are talking about our main, normally we are testing ONGC के लिए हम लोग ये inspections करते हैं. So we have given you some ONGC recommended routine test. That is a visual test. What are we doing in this? Nameplate, terminal box, main for this. BTD means bearing temperature detectors. Bearing से temperature कितना हो रहा है? RTD जो temperatures कितना हो रहा है? So BTD and RTDs are being tested in case of the high voltage motors, which we have not covered in this, so we have not covered this also in this. Measurement of the winding resistances, which we have already covered. No load test and block rotor test we have covered. IR test we have covered. Reduced voltage test we have covered. Type test, so DC requirement type test with the same thing which we have done and given earlier also. Full load test, determining that is what the temperature resistance and temperature rise test. Next slide, please. Now, what we do in the visual inspection, nameplate rating, surface finish, terminal block, mounting foot, calling किस तरीके की मोटर है, क्या चीज है, उसके specifications and the nameplate rating of the motors are matching or not, and what we add additionally is the paint color and the space heater connections if they are provided. Now what the part which we have left in between is the QAP and IT. अब मैं आपको मेरे को उसकी उस तरफ से निकालना पड़ेगा. Now this is what the ONGC has given NEP increased. So that you complete. Top पे जाइए, पीछे का है. टॉप ऊपर ऊपर एक बार टॉप पे जाइए, ऊपर जाइए, ऊपर जाइए। ठीक है, ओके, जहाँ पे अभी। Now these are the things they have given. If you see what we are interested in the routine test as per IS 12615, that's what I told you. Visual checks, measurement of the winding resistance, no load and block rotor test, high voltage test, insulation test, reduced voltage test. Go to the town please, and नीचे इसके अंदर documentations हैं जो check कर रहे हैं. They have given about the documents. ये the documents इसके अंदर दिए हुए हैं. Test certificates for the specified and classified gas group classification. This is where the motor is being operated. उसके ऊपर है, and then it is in the code 1, code 2 areas of the cases. Next. Next. Wait a minute, sir. दूसरा वाला निकालो ना पेपर, दो से ना. अभी इसके अलावा भी हो रहे हैं इसके वो डालने में. हाँ, ये खोल दीजिए. पूरा हो रहा है. Now, the inspection and test plan of the main motor से तो हो चुका है. दूसरा खोलिए. This is a QAP. Increase करूंगा. This is a quality assurance plan. What we were asking about this, I mean, ECITP have shown it is in general a quality assurance plan. Can you increase so that people can read? If you see, there are so many items are given. It is starting from the raw material stage. Raw material stage के अंदर resistance होगा, carbon होगा. I am not able to read. थोड़ा और बढ़ाइए so that I can. If I can read, then the people can read. Now, if you see, you read it all. I will explain that. You read it all. Insulated status from the. Now, copper conductor. This is the most important part of a motor. Copper conductor. कैसा copper है, किस तरीके use हो रहा है, इसके जो documents आएंगे that you will review, because you cannot go during the test because it comes purchase in logs. Then similarly the rotor. Now their chemical compositions क्या है, उसकी magnetic strength क्या है, ये सब details होंगी and इसके certificates ही आप देखेंगे. Then the short current rating. शाफ्ट कैसी बनी है, किस तरीके की बनी है, क्या बना है, ये सब होगा. इन सब के केवल सर्टिफिकेट्स आपको अवेलेबल होंगे एंड यू विल रिव्यू द सर्टिफिकेट्स. ऊपर करिए. नाउ देयर इज इन प्रोसेस. दिस इज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग मोटर्स के इन प्रोसेस है. ये इन प्रोसेस के अंदर इंस्पेक्शंस विल बी कैरिड आउट. ऑल इंस्पेक्शंस विल बी कैरिड आउट बाय द मैन्युफैक्चरर्स ओनली. यू विल ओनली रिव्यू दीस डॉक्यूमेंट्स. बट रोटर डायनामिक बैलेंसिंग समटाइम्स you can witness. Assembly part is of there. Now comes out to the tests. These are the routine checks or routine tests you can say. You see that there the electrical circuit के अंदर क्या क्या लिखा है देखिए. IR stator winding, IR of space heater, In case of the space heater, they are stator winding. If it's stator wind, then the space heater, then BTD, RTD. This is often etched for ST motors. Direction of the rotation, reduced voltage running, no load, full load, vibrations measurement. This is in case of the ST motors required. It's being done on the bearings. Lock rotor test. Then high voltage test, which we have covered, which these all are the tests which we have already covered. Then we will go down type test. Then that what we have given the temperature rise test, final finishing test. Now can you take it to the left side? Now you see what are the tests? All the tests are being witnessed. W means witnessed. Even if you see the more temperature rise test, also sometimes it is being witnessed. And then our final aspect comes the issue of IRN. But before getting the issue of the IRN, I would like to say what are the formats for the IR and IRN. उसी के IR चलो ठीक है let it be ये IRN है ऊपर वाला पहले हमेशा IR बनेगा दैट इज द इंस्पेक्शन रिपोर्ट इंस्पेक्शन आपने कर लिया लेकिन अगर उसकी रिकॉर्डिंग नहीं की तो आपके इंस्पेक्शन का कोई फायदा नहीं है आपको टोटली इसको रिकॉर्ड करना है और जिस चीज के आप इंस्पेक्शन कर लेंगे उस चीज के ऊपर कोई ना कोई आइडेंटिफिकेशन मार्क छोड़ेंगे कि यस दिस आइटम हैज बीन इंस्पेक्टेड एंड इंस्पेक्टेड बाय हू इज आल्सो टू बी इंडिकेटेड ऑन द आइटम. So this is a typical IR report, inspection report. There are the various things in this that is required as the customer name. यानी किसने किसके लिए आप कर रहे हैं इंस्पेक्शन किसके लिए कर रहे हैं क्यों कर रहे हैं कैसे कर रहे हैं वो सब डिटेल्स इसके अंदर होंगी और डॉक्यूमेंट्स के अंदर आपको जैसे उसके अंदर गया है डॉक्यूमेंट्स क्या क्या होना चाहिए जितनी भी इसकी इंटरनल रिपोर्ट्स है वो सब इसके अंदर होंगी एड की जाएंगी. मेरी स्लाइड्स बनी हुई थी बस with this now after IR there can be in motor there is a IR there will be IRN because otherwise you will be setting expecting whether the motor has been accepted or not accepted. If not accepted, what are the reasons you have to mention. In case the motor has been accepted, then you have to issue the IRN. And the IRN is also having the same format as of the IR and it is there. If you will see, there are the different इनके अंदर dates भी है आपने कब किया कहाँ किया कैसे किया all these details are in this and these are to be filled. With this, I end the session and I request you for the questions and answers.
Now I request all delegates to unmute yourselves and ask your questions. Alternatively, you may type your questions in the chat box.
Any questions, please? If you don't have any questions, I am having a lot of questions. So should I ask the questions from you? Will I get the answer? कौन है अभी? So no questions? How many people are there who are listening?
31.
30, 31, 32. Is there any electrical one कोई है? कौन है जिसको की आवाज देके हम पूछ सकें, पता चले वो है कि नहीं? जय कुमार है? जय कुमार, are you listening me? So nobody is listening. Yes, nobody is listening.
I request all delegates to unmute yourselves and ask your questions. You may type your questions in the chat box.
Okay, let's go.
I sincerely thank Mr. Sunil Khanna for excellent presentation on inspection and testing of electrical rotary equipment. Your clear explanation of the inspection and testing procedures was very informative and valuable for all of us. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you so much, sir. I see there is no questions anymore, so we are going ahead.
ये ना है ही नहीं, फायदा क्या है? Nobody is.
ICS is pleased to provide all its research and development, integrated management system, QMS, EMS, and OHSS, excellence in education management, Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, Hindi. For reading any of the above books, please contact Sushma Kindalkar. Feedback form, please register on www.sadgunsam.org and go in your login and give your feedback. We officially close today's Sadgun Sangh. I would like to thank our speaker and all participants for their valuable time and active participation. We hope you found the session informative and useful. Have a nice day.